This is an MXM 175 case international tractor, and this thing has been an absolute crazy nightmare trying to figure out what's wrong with it. So it was doing it a little bit last fall. This thing would, the ambient temperature would warm up. You could come out in the morning and get in the tractor and it would work till about noon, and then the son of a gun wouldn't move anymore. And I was really busy at the time, and I guess they hauled it up to Case International, to a case dealer, and they put a complete wire and harness in it. And they got it back late in the fall, and it did it again. And so they brought it to me when I had time this spring, and I've spent about 15 hours now in the diagnostics on this thing. They had another tractor exactly like this one, so I took the controller, the central controller, which is, let me get in here, I got the cab all torn apart. That's your transmission controller right back in here. It's right underneath your right hand console there. Right up towards there's your right hand door. It's right there. So I changed that out and it did the same thing. So it actually got worse. So you can get on these codes. I'll show you how to access your diagnostic codes. Okay, if you pop this right hand console off over here, it's going to have your hitch, it's going to have your hitch, your height limit control and all that stuff on there. Pull them 4 screws out. There'll be a white plug and a black plug in here. Okay, now there's a special tool for this, and my daughter's dog, there's supposed to be a push button on the end of this. Okay, well, my daughter's dog, her puppy, chewed the end off the damn cable. Well, that's a $134 cable from Case. And I'll leave a link in the description there for the part number. But I ordered another one, but I made this one work. And I figured out what it is. It's actually a normally closed switch, so when the push button actually opens the circuit. There's only 2 wires in this thing. So if you want to get into your codes on this, actually, I'm all screwed up. So I need to hold these together. Hold on, I'll put the phone. So basically, if you had the push button, this thing would be closed circuited. But I got to hold the wires together to get into the H menus on your shift console right here. I don't know if you can see that. Let me go ahead and turn the key on. Okay, we're in the H1 menu. H1 menu is your calibration. So we can actually go into, we got an F71 code because I've got this sensor unplugged, but now what you want to do to toggle through your H menus is keep touching, well, I'm touching the wires, but you would push your button on the push button switch. And so there's H1, H2, H3, H4. H5 is a switch test, which we'll go ahead and do the switch test, alright? So I'm sitting on the seat right now. There's the pressure switch in the seat. So when, just like a lawnmower, when you get off, it's supposed to deactivate the tractor. What it does is it deactivates the power to the clutch disconnect switch so it doesn't put power to the shift solenoids. And you'll have a number pop up. If you look in the service manual, every time you activate a function, it'll pop up a certain number, like this one's popping up D36. So, the seat switch, the control module is seeing the signal from the seat switch. Okay, so we did all this stuff, okay? I went through because it wasn't throwing any codes. You can go into your codes. Let me go back. So, H1, H2, you want to go to HB, and those are your codes. So there's an F90 there, which means central controller not present. I don't know why it does that. It's always done that since they've had the tractor. And if you look that F90 code up in the service manual, it doesn't say it affects the tractor any. So you got me, man. So if you want to toggle through your codes, you got your upshift and downshift buttons on your hand throttle here for the transmission. So there's an F71. You can upshift. You can go back to the next code that you had, the downshift. So there's an F90, and there's an F71 in there. Okay, that's our codes. The reason there's an F71 code in there is because the sensor I'll tell you about in a little bit that I finally figured out what was going on is unplugged. I unplugged it. But let's go back. So you can go to H. You want to go to, if you want to clear your codes, go to HC. And it'll come up and flash EE. And that means the codes are cleared. Okay, so then you can go back to H1 is your clutch calibration menu. Come on, you piece of shit. So we're going back to H. Don't go to H8. See, it starts out with H1, H2, H3. Don't go to H8. H8 is a volatile memory reset. And once you do that, you're going to have to put all the configurations back into the central controller. It erases the whole damn thing. Trust me, I learned that the hard way. So, it's still got that F90 code in there. But, anyway, so what I did on this, I went through all the switch test on it, you know, and you can push the clutch down, because this clutch has got a potentiometer to feather the clutch, because you don't really have a clutch on this. You're basically dumping power from the ABC D solenoids on the power shift valve on top, and then you've got some forward and reverse clutches and a couple other solenoids. So basically, you're just taking the hydraulics away from the transmission to where it won't shift. And there's the disconnect tool is what does the disconnect switch right here is what does that. You got one side of it's normally open and one side of it's normally closed. So this potentiometer here is just for feathering the clutch. Let's say if you're backing into an implement to hook it up, it's just so you don't, you know, it's not all or none. You can feather your clutch. So I went through all that, and long story short, everything was fine. I mean, I went through the whole gamut of stuff on this thing. Wouldn't throw any transmission codes. So, and then I thought, well, maybe I've got a hydraulic problem. So I went to, there's a bunch of pressure ports on all these solenoids, and there's a system pressure port back on the transmission. And hydraulics, everything was fine. No problems. So I went into thinking you can go into clutch calibrations, which is H1, and so there's your clutch calibration, right? So I went into the clutch calibration menu, and I actually got into to where I started the cal process, and it kept flashing a U21 code. Well, U21, you're supposed to have the hand throttle set to where engine RPM is 1200 RPM to do the calibration. Well, I looked up this U21 code, and the U21 code, mind you, this U21 code never would pop up any other time. It would only pop up during the calibration procedure. So I go look this U21 up, and this says that engine RPM is less than 1200, can't do clutch calibrations. And I thought, well, that's bullshit. It says it right on the dash. It says 1200 RPM. So I look up U21, and it tells me to refer to an F37 code, which it never threw an F37 code, but I looked it up anyway. And this sensor right down here, there's this sensor. This thing's got a loader on it, and this loader frame. But this is, they call this the engine, I think it was the engine torque speed sensor. It's basically, I think, an input sensor to the transmission, you know. So I unplugged it, and I got in the tractor. Of course, you know, this thing would not move. So I unplugged it, and I got in the tractor, and the son of a gun started moving. So if I plug it back in, the tractor quits moving. So if you get one like this on one of these, unplug these speed sensors and see what you run into. I got to pull the loader off this thing and pull the loader frame off just to change the speed sensor. As you can tell, it's buried down in there, and it's not going to come out there without pulling that loader frame off. But this thing's been quite a go-around trying to figure out what the deal is with it. Would never would throw a code for it, but I can plug that sensor in right now, and that tractor won't do anything. It will not move. With unplugged, it'll move. So what I think is going on, I think the control module, because that's one of the inputs to the central controller for the transmission. I think the controller thinks that the engine's not running, so it's not going to put any power to the shift solenoids. You know, you got your power coming out of your disconnect switch, but the power comes out of the clutch disconnect switch and the potentiometer. If you look in the wiring diagram on the service manual, and it goes straight to that controller, then the power comes out of the controller and goes to the shift solenoid. So if it doesn't see a signal from that speed sensor thinking the engine's not running, it's not ever going to put power to these shift solenoids no matter what you do. So I'm thinking when you unplug that, it's going to a default setup in the controller to make it run anyway. So, well guys, now we're going to pull the loader off this thing and get it set aside and get the loader frame off and get this speed sensor out. The other side came out. I found a prop for it. This is going to work out pretty good. will stand up. Yeah, it ain't going nowhere. Okay, let's go pull the loader frame off. We got that propped up. Got all my hoses capped here. They're all color coded, so you can't screw that up. This thing's got a squeeze clamp on it for grabbing plastic bells, fumigation fields, so it's got a little electric over hydraulic wire going there to the valve block down there. But alright, well, let's get the side. Okay, we got the tension off of the truck now. Okay. Try not to rip the dipstick off of it and break that off. Yeah, that's a pretty good tight fit in there. Alright, well. That's a finger getter right there. That's a pretty good chunk of iron. I don't swing back and knock the window out. Let's see, where do we want to set this thing? Okay, we got the loader frame off. I'll show you the sensor now that we need to change. Alright, we finally can get to what we're after here. Here's this sensor right here. Looks like about a 5mm Allen. This thing's just a magnetic pickup. That's all it is. And you can see the rust on that thing. And a bunch of shit sticking on the end of it there. Man, wish that fuel tank, I wish I could shine my light in there and see down in that hole. Make sure there wasn't something, well, the sensor's not really damaged, so something's not coming apart in there and hitting it. So it's just got to be a bad sensor, but I think we need to get our blower nozzle. That's a dry housing in there. There's like a torque dampener in there. We'll just take a blower nozzle and try to blow that out as best we can. Get some of that stuff out of there, but the new sensor's on its way. We'll see here in a while what happens. Getting ready here to calibrate the transmission on this MXM 175 case. We got our new speed sensor in here just a minute ago. So let's go ahead and get into our, fire this thing up and get into the menu. I got to put the phone down. It's going to take me 2 hands to do this. Oh, I got the shuttle lever on forward. That's why it won't start. Oh, I didn't do something right. I don't think I held it long enough. Alright. So you're going to just let it go to H1. It'll start out at HH and then it'll automatically go to H1. So, run your RPMs. Up to 1200. We'll know right away if we got her fixed because it wasn't calibrated at all before. Put your shuttle lever forward, make sure your park brake's on. If it doesn't see that park brake on, it'll throw one of those U codes. So, Push the downshift button on this downshift button. One of these is the transmission temperature is what it tells you. And it'll throw a U code too if your transmission temperature isn't warm enough. And I've had this thing running a while, so it should be warm enough. Push it again. When you get to, it'll say A up here, and that's when you're on A clutch. So, alright, we're on A now. Hold the downshift button. Just hold it in the downshift button. See that graph? It's that line moving back and forth. You'll start seeing these numbers pop up. I think it does 1, 2, 3, and the tractor will kind of trying to move on you a little bit. It's calibrating now. We never got this far before. Basically, you just sit here and hold it and let it go through its sequence, and it'll go to B next by it. So I think when you let off or something after it's done, it'll go to B. Let's see here. She's calibrating now. I'm feeling pretty good about this. This thing's been a pain trying to figure out what's going on. Never would throw a code. I mean, something in their fault finding in their controller is not very good or something. Okay, see it says A, let off, and it goes. When it starts blinking there, that's when you're done. So we'll do B now. See, now it's doing clutch B. You can hear the tractor labor a little bit. That means what it's doing there is it's trying to know what the volume indexes are for filling the clutches and what it's actually going to take to move it with the pulse width modulated solenoids on the valve body, of how much oil to put in that clutch pack. So basically, it doesn't jerk the tractor around when it shifts, and it shifts smooth. John Deere uses like what they call clutch modulation. It's kind of the same thing here, but the coils on the shift solenoids are pulse width modulated. Okay, so clutch B's done. Let off. Now we're on C. I am pretty certain we've got it because we never got this far before. It wouldn't. Yeah, she's trying to take off on me here. I don't think the e-brake is adjusted very well. I'm going to hold my foot on the brake. I don't want this thing to fail calibration because the e-brake's not holding and some bitch took off moving. Alright, we're done with C. Now on to clutch D. I can't remember if there's an E or no. I think there is an E. I think there's A, B, C, D, and E. Then there's a forward and reverse clutch, I think is what you have to do on these. Alright, D's done. On to clutch E. Yeah, there's a E. I kind of lifted my butt off the seat a little bit and it started to throw a U code. So another thing, you got to be sitting in the seat. Sometimes they're getting a little bit carried away with some of this safety stuff. I mean, it's nice, you know, people do some dumb things, and I've done some dumb things myself, getting in a hurry and get out of something with it move, or, you know, in gear or something like that. I've done some dumb shit myself, but some of this stuff goes a little bit overboard. Clutch E's done. Now there's forward clutch. she really tries to jerk on you on a forward clutch. I gotta really stand on the brake, keep it from taking off. Alright, forward clutch is done. Okay. Should be in reverse clutch. Well, maybe forward clutch wasn't done. I think I let off too soon. I thought it was done. Damn it. Well, we'll do it again, see if it'll go to reverse. It should go to reverse. And then should be done after that. I think you're supposed to, after you get done with the calibration, it should, I think it flashes EE at the end, and then you shut the tractor off for like 30 seconds and save it. That'll save the values in the memory, and then you can restart it. Alright, forward clutch is done. Okay, I don't know what. I had to push the upshift button to get to reverse. Okay. So I guess when you get the forward clutch done, it doesn't automatically go to the next clutch sequence like it did on the A, B, C, D, and E. You got to push the upshift button to go to reverse. Yeah, I forgot about that. I work on a lot more John Deere stuff than I do case stuff. There's a lot more John Deeres around here than these red ones, so sometimes I'm not a little bit shy on the knowledge part on the case stuff, but eventually I'll get it. Yeah, it's trying to go backwards on us now. Okay, reverse is done. Now, see, it went back to clutch A, so that's it. Alright, so let's go in to our HB menu and clear the codes. Or HC, I mean. HB shows the codes, and HB, remember guys, on these cases, on this menu here only shows the transmission codes. Oh shit. Come on, man. There we go. So, HC, that's our clear. Alright, so we got our codes cleared. Alright, well, guess we need to shut the tractor off and restart it. And see if it'll move. I keep forgetting to take that shuttle lever and put it back to neutral. Alright. Park brake off and oh, look at that. It moves now. Isn't that nice? It's got some P32 PTO code that keeps popping up on it, on the dash here. See how she shifts. Oh man, that's nice. It shouldn't be slamming into gear. You know, that clutch modulation ought to kind of feather those clutches in so it doesn't pop into gear. This road's rougher than shit down here. I think we got her, man. Well, I'm going to back it up there by my service truck and put the loader frame back on it and then bolt the loader on so they can go use this thing. I got to put a bunch of this interior stuff when I was trying to find the problem. A bunch of this I got to put back together too. Yeah, that tractor needs this is a stiff riding son of a man. Alright, I'm happy. Let's see how reverse does. Oh yeah. We got reverse. We got everything. Well, maybe I ought to pull it just a little bit there. Alright guys. Well, thanks for watching. I'm pretty sure we got this one whipped.